What's up? So today what we're doing is, since with Historic Brawl coming out the permanent 100 card queue, the friends and I decided to start off with what are some cards you can craft day one that will kind of give you that best in slot pieces for each of the monocolored cards and then artifacts. So we're going to go through them each, what we think the best two are for each color, and throw out some honorable mentions and stuff as well, and kind of, see if we all agree with the same thing. First, we have Smurfy with 3 Cups Gaming.
Hey, everybody.
And then we also have Chris with C One Shot.
Hello, hello.
So we're going to be going through these all one at a time. Let's get started with whites. So I figured, white had pretty low as far as like what they could actually do. I felt it was pretty clear cut. What did you guys have for your number one?
Whites are my favorite color to play, so I have a lot of experience. Totally.
Yeah.
So what do we have in number one? Our number one slot is really a budget pick at Revitalize, an uncommon instant spell. You gain 3 life, you draw a card. Simple and about as good as you can get in white.
Okay. I think that's super interesting. I actually had Mangara the Diplomat as my number one. I think that since he fits into like so many decks, including like mono white itself as a commander, if you want, he gives you a lot of options. A lot of people double spell, or if they're an aggro deck, they're gonna have to attack you with multiple creatures, and I think just getting that recursive card draw is really strong.
Yeah.
Did you guys have Mangara?
Mangara as our second in slot, for the reason of probably he is going to give you more recursive card draw. He does fit many of those themes, but he is a mythic investment.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to be investing day one in card draw spells and you have a spare mythic to burn, pick him up. But if you're looking to other colors for your card draw, maybe leave him off until you really want to invest in mono white.
Okay. Well, if that's your argument for why you want to put it on there, I think my number two was Inspiring Commander from the Arena set, since everybody already starts with a copy of him. I figure, especially playing mono white.
Very good card.
Yeah, I figure if you're playing mono white, which is like if you're primarily picking up white card draws that you're playing, you can probably get a lot of value off of him with just so many creatures having power 2 or less.
I think my only argument against him is he is very expensive and can be taken out pretty quickly.
That's true. Yeah.
That's the only argument I have against it.
I don't know. See, I think I still want to put Mangara number one, but I'm down for Revitalize number two, I think.
All right.
I think that seems pretty fair.
We'll definitely need to return to Inspiring Commander when we come back to mono white ramp.
That's true, yeah.
How often are you going to be able to get him out quickly?
Yeah. Well, so our number one slot, Mangara the Diplomat. Number two, Revitalize. Pick them up for your mono white card draw needs. And if you're splashing any of the colors, don't pick mono white for card draw. All right, now for
a strong suit.
Now for a color that's known for its card draw, blue. This was really tough for me. Well, okay, let me phrase this. My number one slot of Brainstorm was not tough for me. This card is insane value. There's a reason it's banned in a lot of formats. There's a reason it's like played in every format it can be. This card is just strong. Peeking at 3 cards and smoothing out your draws. Did you guys have a different number one?
No, we're pretty much in agreement that its ability to shape your hand and early and at instant speed makes it probably the strongest card draw spell.
Yeah. Okay. What'd you guys end up having for number two?
Our number two is another mythic card. It's one that serves a couple of different purposes. Seagate Restoration is where we sat for number two.
Had the exact same number two. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think the MDFCs themselves are already incredibly strong cards. I think that Seagate doubling your hand size and giving you a max hand size is really strong. I think it's got flexibility. You need to land early. Boom. You want to draw 4 to 8 cards.
It's a land that could change the game.
Yeah, and like it could draw you 2 to 8 cards, and that's just not bad. I wish it was instant speed.
Not bad.
So I actually have an honorable mention here for blue that I had a hard time picking between Seagate Restoration and it, and that would be Blue Sun Zenith.
Blue Sun
Um,
Zenith. Blue Sun
yes,
Zenith. That's the triple blue X, right?
yeah, Triple Blue X, instant speed, target player draws X cards, shuffle Blue Sun Zenith into its owner's library.
Ah, that
So
is a good pick. That is a pretty good pick.
I had it up there because 4 Seagate Restorations mana cost, you get to draw 4 cards, instant speed.
Yeah. Mhm.
But really just the and it shuffles back in so you can reuse it later on. But I think really
Right.
Seagate to me beat it out just because of the MDFC factor and like having the option to have it as a land um, makes it
But
more of
something
a
we should
staple.
note for both of those cards is they work best as either monocolored decks or two-colored decks. Because of their triple blue investment, you are going to need a pretty consistent mana base to cast either of them effectively.
I agree. And I also want to like, yeah, it's one of those things where like, if you're in a specific color pair, you may have stronger options, and we'll try to go into those as well before we get into the launch. But yeah, I agree with you. I think
We
mono or double
also
colored.
oh,
Oh, you
we
guys have an
also
honorable
had
mention?
an honorable mention.
What card?
Yeah, I fought for the honorable mention of the Chemist's Insight. It could be a nostalgia thing. You know, I started playing around Ravnica started, but I think I get a lot of return on investment from Chemist's Insight.
Mm-hmm.
It is an uncommon. It is an instant draw two with an ability to draw two again if I want to do another investment later.
Fair.
I think it gets a lot of stuff done.
Yeah, I mean, I guess getting to draw effectively 3 cards for 8 mana is not bad at instant speed.
And it also doesn't require as heavy a color investment, so it earns a little bit on that.
Makes sense. I think it leans a little bit to draw go as well, which is like a little unfortunate, but I think it's still a good card. I totally agree. So, heard it here first, guys. Best in slot, craft a brainstorm. Who knew? If you don't have one, honestly, it's your best call. And then Seagate Restoration is our number 2. Would highly recommend it. It'll play in standard brawl as well, and you'll get a lot of use out of it. This card will get its mileage. On to black. So this one I had a little interesting one with. My number 1 on this slot is actually Phyrexian Arena. I had it at number 1 because it's a steady value. You play it turn 3, and then let's assume the game ends turn 7 to 9. You effectively played 3 mana to draw 4 cards. I think that's pretty fair in a 1v1. And the only time I'd say this card is bad, and with almost all black card draw, is if you're against like a super aggro deck and you have no way to gain life. But I still wouldn't call it bad since there's only 1 life a turn.
Yeah, life is usually the resource for drawing cards in a lot of black decks.
Our number 1 is a card that has reads very similarly, though. Our number 1 reads very similarly. It's Castle Lochthwain. The land from Eldraine enters tapped unless you control a swamp, adds black mana, and then for 1 and 2 black and tapping it, you draw a card and lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand. Typically, when we're using this, you're hell bent, so it'll cost you the 1 life for when you drew it.
Mm-hmm.
And we put it at number 1 above Phyrexian Arena because of its versatility as a land coming in.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like you didn't have to commit to black quite as much to get it to work at some point during the game.
Okay. So you had Phyrexian Arena as your number 2?
We did have Phyrexian Arena as our number 2, though.
I had my Lochthwain as number 2.
There you go.
And I guess for me, the reason I swapped them is that so Lochthwain costs the same amount of mana for a one-time effect, which is great in a land. Don't get me wrong. So that's number 2. But I think the fact that Phyrexian Arena can start drawing you cards early in the game is why I favored it higher. But I totally agree. I think they're both incredibly powerful. That's a tough one to see what we'd put in first. Chris, are you feeling the same way? as far as the rating on those two.
Chris had to step away to take a phone call.
Oh, never mind. Uh, yeah, I think. Yeah, I think I'm down to put Lockthwain first, because at least for another couple months it'll be useful in Standard Brawl. And like you said, I think that you're much more likely to splash this as well into other non-mono block decks, or even decks that like require triple color. Because by the time you're generally using Lockthwain, you have a chance to get that triple black out essentially. So yeah, so number 1, Castle Lockthwain. Number 2, Phyrexian Arena. Real quick, I want to give an honorable mention to Sign in Blood, especially in mono black decks. 2 mana, draw 2, lose 2. It's a strong card to play early. All right, so now on to red. And red has an interesting thing where like card draw isn't really free. It's mostly looting effects where you're paying cards to get cards, or there's like the impulse draw where you exile and play someone's turn. That was really hard to decide because there was like, I don't know. I value impulse draw pretty highly, but I think that Arena doesn't have very good impulse draw. So for me, my number 1 for red was Faithless Looting. I think that it's cheap.
I'm going to interject here. Our number 1 is also Faceless Looting.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I felt like it was too strong to really pass up, you know? Like it's cheap. I can put it in any kind of red deck.
Advantage, but it's also card selection.
That
you can't pass up.
Yeah, I mean, like getting to pitch out, like, you know, it's turn 3 or 4. I've got out 4 lands. I'm an aggressive red deck. Boom, I pitch 2 lands. You know, I draw 2, pitch 2. And that gives me like great card selection. Or I'm big red and I need lands.
And plus, with the flashback, it becomes, even though it's a little bit more costly, it still does its job. It's even more bonus than its first cast, I would argue.
Yeah. That said, I do want to give anybody watching this a quick heads up. There is, unfortunately, a tax to Faithless Looting where you have to buy the card art, the art style. I think it's like 3,000. It's 3,000 or 5,000 gold. So just a heads up, there's a hidden tax to get the art style to look a little bit more in line.
Which art do you have?
I have the Japanese art, but like I've got the regular one here, so you could read the name. So what was your number 2?
My number 2 is to capitalize off of this impulse draw. I valued Chandra Torch of Defiance as my number 2.
Interesting. Okay.
I put it there because 1, it was the impulse draw, and if it was something that you yourself can't use at that moment, it also hurt the opponent. It's a bonus kind of thing, along with the ability to ramp and do a bunch of other stuff, being a planeswalker. I think that kind of value is, you know, you got to use it. You got to use it while you got it, right?
Oh no, I totally agree. I dropped my clipboard. I like that. That's a really interesting number 2. I mean, the card's really good. There's a reason it was like one of the go-to cards for aggro in Kaladesh. I remember very fondly playing it when I first got Arena. It's up there. And I think the fact that, like, you know, your ult is pretty game-breaking, too.
Oh, yeah, it's game-winning.
My number 2, Oxvagonus.
Oxvagonus, yeah.
Yeah, 5-drop, draw 3 fresh cards, discard your hand, and can be escaped, so you can, like, play it again. I thought of an idea for, like, what was recursive card draw in red. And those are 2 really good answers.
Oxvagonus is very high up there for me as well. Especially with all of other Red's card draw involves usually pitching cards. You can make that Oxvagonus not cost 5; they're cost 2, plus a bunch of cards in your graveyard. But you're tossing stuff anyways. Stuff is dying.
No, I totally agree. I'm torn. I'm really torn which one of these I think is 2. I think I'm gonna give this one to you. I think that Chandra having the addition to also be ramp is super interesting. And that whereas I would put Ox in just about any mono red deck, I could see myself splashing Chandra in a lot of other decks too. So I'm going to move the Ox to the honorable mention category. So I think I agree with you. I think Chandra's number 2. Did you have any other honorable mentions for this color?
My honorable mention is I want to call out to it's not up here for some reason. It's
While you're looking that up, I'll call out Valakut Awakening. Another MDFC. I love this card. I think it's so good. I love MDFCs for lands. And I think the fact that this also can be mana fixing if you need it, or it can be pitch it and go even on cards is really strong. Was that what you were going to call out too? Or
yeah, I found it. My honorable mention that I just want to shout out is Life the State. Most of my red decks have some sort of instance of burn or doing at least a consistent amount of damage, and getting 2 extra cards for the price of 1 mana is great.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it favors an aggro shell, but like that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you're relying on red card draw, you're probably doing something that requires it. And 3 mana hard cast that you can cast them next turn isn't terrible.
Yeah, especially it's into the end of the next turn helps it a lot.
No, I agree. So here first, guys. So for mono red, number 1 slot, Faithless Looting. Of course, make sure you get the art style. And in the number 2 slot, Chandra, Torch of Defiance, for the flexibility of, if you don't need the card, letting you damage, mana ramp, removal, and a game-winning emblem. All right, and want to grab James for the mono green?
Right here.
Cool. Let me know when you're ready, James.
All set.
All right. Now for mono green. So I actually have something that I think you guys are going to be... I think this is going to be a very contested one from what I remember you guys talking about. So for me, my number 1 mono green card draw card is not just card draw. It is card draw that can draw you anywhere from 1 to like 10 cards, and then lets you cast a spell for free. And so of course it's going to be Rich Car's Expertise. I abuse this card in any deck I'm allowed to. I think 6 mana card draw is amazing. Most of your commanders, like even if it's a 6 mana, draw 4, draw 3, and then get to cast a free 5 seems to or less spell, seems pretty good.
It's not bad. It's a great pick. It's a very I didn't even know this card existed. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah. I know for a fact that at least in Commander, which, now that we're at 100 cards singleton, will be very Commander-like, minus the multiplayer, this card wins games. Honestly, like, it allows you to refill, especially if you're playing mono green. I think this is, like, a fantastic, like, you're sitting on, like, just a Kogla or any other 6-power creature, which I don't think is too uncommon in mono green. And this allows you to get, like, tons of value immediately.
I guess you can get you a couple. You can't. It says cast a mana value of 5 or less.
Right. The Kogla is in play.
You cast it, you draw 7,
and then
now
you get something else out. Okay, then you say like a question.
A Gargaroth.
Big. Gargaroth. Yeah.
Good pick. Very good.
Very good pick.
What was your guys' number 1?
Our number 1. Which I know lots of people are excited to see rotate with in standard, is the Great Henge.
I was already hovering over it.
The similar to your point in mono green, you're likely going to have a 5, 6, 7 power creature out pretty often, making the Great Henge an affordable artifact. It ramps you 2, and you gain 2 life, and when you put non-token creatures out, you draw a card, and they get bigger. It does everything mono green wants.
See, I agree. I think it's awesome, and I think it splashes really well, especially in like Gruul and Golgari. But Great Henge is actually my honorable mention. It didn't even make my top 2.
Really?
So I think that the card for me that I think that is similar to Great Henge It has the same ability essentially where a non-token creature ETBs, you draw a card, but it's cheaper on its own, and I put Guardian Project in.
Then we share our number 2.
Okay. Yeah, I think that Guardian Project is really strong. It comes down early, and you can play it. So, say for instance, you do 2 mana Rock, turn 3 Guardian Project, turn 4 you're just firing off gas.
Yeah, just fire, and that's why we put it at number 2 as well, because it is a cheaper option, and it gives you that gas in order to continue forward. It's great. It's a great hinge light at a cheaper cost.
Yeah, and I think that they're both incredibly strong. I guess I just value Guardian Project more, since it's cheaper, more consistent, I guess. But I guess it's just because I think Guardian Project can go into pretty much any green deck, green X, anything in Commander. So I guess I personally, I'm not budging. I think Rich Cars is the fucking best, and you have to give me a strong argument to why I'd be number 2.
Fine.
But
I can fold on Great Hinge being the honorable mention, but it is a very high honor.
Oh yeah, like I think. What do you guys think between Guardian Project, Great Hinge? Like, do you think the consistency of having Guardian Project on turn, 4 at the latest, or do you think the Great Hinge being a little more explosive with the life gain and mana ramp? What do you think is more powerful?
I think the life gain and mana ramp is enough to put it over the top for mono green decks. I think you have a strong argument for splashing. Guardian Project likely comes out a little bit higher. But at least in mono green, I think Great Henge wins it.
So what would you guys put at number 2? What would you put at number 2, James?
If we're leaving Rishkar at the top, I would put the Great Henge at 2.
Chris?
I still argue that Great Hinge is also at number 2, just because of it's more it adds it's more kind of thing, and plus you can get Great Hinge on turn 4 as well.
Okay, 1 second. Yes, if you have a 3-drop 5/5.
Lovestruck Beast.
Which is true. We've seen it in Standard a lot. I just mean in a Commander, in Brawl, it's tougher.
The elf, the 3-mana elf.
The Steel Leaf Champion, I think.
Yeah, Steel Leaf Champion. Possible.
There are a few ways to do it, but
yeah, I was gonna say you guys talked me into putting it number 2. I think the flexibility there, the counters can be pretty relevant too, to be honest, if you're building a deck that synergy with that. But no, I think that if I'm playing a deck that has green in it, I'm pretty sure all 3 of these cards are going in that deck.
Oh no, they all go in. No. They all definitely go in the deck.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Great Project was the one we picked out first.
Yeah.
And now that I know this Rishkar's expertise exists, I'm going to put it in a couple other decks.
Yeah, would recommend. So you heard it here first. So number 1 at green, we have Rishkar's expertise. Well worth the rare wild card. I've not found any problems with it, and it is always like, you know what, casting things for free is a good time. And then Great Henge number 2. Of course, if you don't have one already from Standard, if you can, use it while you got it. You got another 1.5 months, 2 months on it. And then finally, Guardian Project. Great card. Didn't see a lot of Standard play, but is an auto included in almost every single thin format. This card, all 3 of these cards will work off really well for a lot of various arena modes. I think they're probably some of the best card draw we're going to have on the list. Moving on to colorless, though. So my number 1 isn't technically... It's tough. Because I personally try really hard not to have commanders that are planeswalkers. I feel like a lot of the times I try to have, honor the EDH player in me and only pick creatures. So my number 1 kind of reflects that. And so does my number 2. My number 1, I put Tome of Legends. I think that it's a super easy rare craft that you can pick up that will work in almost every deck you build. Even if you're not a super aggressive deck, let's say your commander's part of your combo, people are going to try to remove it. You're going to have to recast it. And this gives you a way to benefit from recasting your commander, even if you're not attacking.
Yeah, I think you're correct on the strength of Tome of Legends because we also put well, it's not also. Tome of Legends is our number 2.
Ooh,
To
okay.
spoil our number 2. You can't deny on the usefulness of it. Like
Yeah, I mean, like the card.
it does what you need for a commander.
Yeah, the card sees a lot of play. I think that it gives pretty ready card draw to a lot of, like mono red and mono white lists that don't have great card draw off the bat. I like it a lot. I think it's also super cheap. Like getting a chance to turn 2 this into a turn 3 commander into turn 4 draw. Seems nice. What did you guys have as number 1?
Our number 1 pick is a card that I think I've seen in almost all of our lists in every deck dash we've ever done. Solemn Simulacrum.
Ah. Let me.
A significant portion of that utility comes from his flexibility of filling 2 roles. He's ramp and card draw and body. He fills a lot of roles. He's a little bit more expensive when he comes down, but especially in many of the games we play, that transition from 4 mana turn to 6 mana turn means a lot. And when you get board wiped, that's at least a little bit of gas to rebuild.
I actually had thought about him. He's on my thing, but I ended up kind of cutting him from my honorable mention list since he isn't repeatable and only draws you the 1 card.
Right.
Like he effectively just cantrips, but I totally get it. He feels really strong. And I think he's definitely on my list for ramp and colorless too.
Yeah, he's gonna show up on a lot of these lists. I think that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, we'll argue over where he belongs in this list in a second, but I totally agree. Craft him. He's gonna fit in almost every list, and I totally agree with your point of like getting you turn 4 to turn 6 and then giving you something if he gets board wiped or removed or chumped. Like, card is so good. And as for 6 mana cards that he can ramp into, my number 2 is the Immortal Sun. Because again, I think that I don't play a lot of Planeswalkers as commanders, and this hoses people who do and gives you an extra draw step. And your stuff is cheaper, and your creatures get buffed. It's a toolbox card in colorless, and I love it. I haven't got to play it too much.
We did talk about Immortal Sun when we were crafting this up. I was like, Immortal Sun's a good card.
Yeah, it's like
you heard it here. You heard it here first, folks. Take artifact removal if you have a Planeswalker commander.
Oh yeah. Take just you need no Planeswalker commander. Take artifact enchantment removal. I'm not saying that a couple of the lists I'm walking around with day 1 are gonna have some enchantment or artifact lockout, but they will. I'm definitely gonna run some enchantment tutoring Hana blue-white list that has like Solemnity 9 lives. Totally. So, and then my honorable mention was Mazemind Tome.
Yeah, Mazemind Tome was definitely talked about as well.
Yeah, I think the scry is good. I think the fact it has tome counters me good. I totally think that in that Solemnity 9 lives combo deck, it not getting counters from Solemnity makes it really good.
And I would note to discuss some of your principles, thinking about a card when you're up, when you're down, when the board's stalled. Mazemind Tome feels good at any of those stages. When you're up and you have spare mana, it draws. When you're down and you're missing life, it heals. When you have no mana, it scries. It feels like a good card at all stages.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then I think, so with your guys' argument for Sad Robot, I think just the mana cost, I think I'm willing to move Immortal Sun down to off the list. I think that you guys have converted me to Sad Robot time.
We've converted you a lot today.
Well, I mean, I still think Tome of Legends is number 1.
No, of course not. But I do at least teach you the gospel of some of these cards.
Well, I'm willing to be flexible. I think that it's important to realize that my opinion is not the opinion that's necessarily right, and I think some of these come down to playstyle. like once we've gone over it. So real quick, number 1 in artifacts, Tome Legends. Craft it if you haven't. Just like a lot of the Eldraine cards that are for Brawl, it's a good card. it's pushed. You should be playing it. It's the Chulane of artifacts. And then Sad Robot, same thing. You don't have one, craft it. These two should make pretty much any Brawl list you have that isn't just like pure Drago control, I think. Yeah. Do you guys have any comments on any of our picks we've made or anything you want to do to wrap it up?
Want to thank everybody who's listening and echo what Brett just said. A lot of these are based on personal preference. I know I like to play big payoff, off the wall wins. I know Chris has an entirely contrary style of play. So don't take these necessarily as absolute best. There may be a card that you love that you want to extol, and let us know in the comments. We'd love to, as we've been teaching Brett here, we all want to learn too.
Yeah, no, if you guys have a card that we think we missed, or you think, hello, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Something real quick kind of comment on as I was editing. I've already kind of figured out some ways on the actual video portion, how I want to improve it for next time. So if you have any ideas on that as well, please give me a heads up. But the format of it will actually change greatly next time. Appreciate you watching, and hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.